move forward. And in Tom's talk yesterday, he talked about Tom Peters and some of his work and how so many of the companies that were popular or were the top-ranked companies in 1957 didn't make it, to the 90s in many cases simply because they couldn't tear things down. And the example that you're going to think about or you should know about is Drupal, right? Is upgrading between 6 and 7. People will tell you, hey, why can't I just straight upgrade? Why do I have to change all the APIs? And it's our willingness to tear things down in between releases while protecting data that makes it different. So, I met Dries a few years ago, and I immediately took him out to the bar and lit his face on fire by pouring Zambuca and kind of established myself as that guy in the community. I also threw a really big party at Drupalcamp Boston in San Francisco. And I like to travel, I like to do a lot of adventure, I go to a lot of conferences. Just to give you an example, I'm doing 6 Drupal events in the next 24 days, and that includes a week off for Thanksgiving. So to help me with keeping fun, Elizabeth, would you mind helping me with the fun part? Okay, could you raise your hand if you would like a taste of a chocolate martini? There was no liquor at the bar last night, and many of us were subjected to only drink beer or wine. So can we get a count? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. So 11, 12 for yourself. If you can do that, and yeah, try a little chocolate on the bottom, and then let's have some fun. Okay, on the other side of the equation, I'm the getting stuff done part. I'm the Drupal Community Adventure Guide at Acquia. What means I'm sort of a community liaison. I spend a lot of time working with the community, but it also means I spend a lot of my time basically doing intel about what's going on in the community, where the developers going, where the business is going, and things like that, and making sure that my colleagues at Acquia understand what's going on the ground. I also am the Director of Business Development for the Drupal Association. I've been on the board since it started. I recently completed a 5-year project, which was the redesign of Drupal.org. The first 2 years of that, we're raising several $100,000. We've put out in cash about $300,000 for that redesign, and the last 1 year was on the design aspect of it, and then 2 years of it, we're squeezing volunteers in the community as hard as I could, and ultimately spending a couple $100,000 on paying them. I coordinate the Drupal security team, and I'll tell you a little bit about why. I come from IBM. My background was building clinical medical record systems, big enterprise stuff. I moved to IBM Research at the Element and Research Lab, and spent a lot of time on security, scalability, next generation systems where our average customer was paying, if they bought a database license, the database license was $25 million a year. Big folks who spent a lot of money dealing with really serious enterprise issues, and so I knew security was really critical. I also work on the Drupal.org infrastructure. That started off with the servers melting down, and then helping to raise money to make sure that we're buying the right infrastructure and making sure we were planning appropriately. And then I do a lot of fundraising. I probably raised, directly or indirectly over $1 million for the Drupal project through the Drupal Association. And then the last one here is qa.drupal.org. I got pulled aside in 2007 at DrupalCon Barcelona, and basically was sat down and said, listen, if this Drupal project is going to be serious, you need to do something about quality, okay? You cannot have these lousy contributed modules. We cannot have these bugs in Drupal. You've got to do something. And so we just basically read the Riot Act. And it was basically people who were representing the United States Department of Defense, people who were basically spending, what we calculated at the time was they were collectively spending $18 million on Drupal. And they said, if we're going to continue to bet our careers on this, and we're not going to walk away, you guys have got to get really serious. So what we did was we built the quality assurance platform, which involves core tests. So we now have 27,000 assertions in Drupal core, and every patch that the community posts is tested against those 27,000 assurances. Many people are waiting for Drupal to come out. The reality is that you've been able to build platforms and major sites on Drupal 7 for close to a year now, just because it's so rock solid stable. The fact that some guy in Germany has an issue with how the internet should be or a feature is turning out to be critical, but that doesn't mean you can't launch your site and stuff like that. So at Acquia, we've launched 25,000 sites. Matt's up there. They've launched, they launched Examiner.com, probably the largest, most complex Drupal site in the world on Drupal 7. And the reason they were able to do it is because it's rock solid, because of the QA platform. Okay, so I spent a lot of time coming together from my background in IBM, trying to pull things together. And the reason was sometimes in your life, you work really, really hard, and people around you don't understand why you're striving to make things so great. And then you do it, and you're planning and planning and planning. And sometimes luck is considered a combination of preparation plus opportunity. So I worked on the security team, I worked on infrastructure, I worked on all this enterprise stuff, trying to get it And we had to address all these different issues. What's the content model? What's the user model? What's the architecture of Drupal? What's performance and scalability? What's security? What's enterprise integration? And how do we make sure that big sites work worldwide? So this was preparation for 6 years to get ready for this meeting. Okay. So in March of 2009, in January of 2009, we started chasing down recovery.gov, and we ultimately were able to get a contact at the White House when we were at DrupalCon Boston, or DrupalCon DC. And so I got a call on the floor of the DrupalCon show, and it was a call from a guy named Dave Cole, and he said, "Hi, this is Dave Cole from the White House. We're not able to," yeah, that helped a lot. That's good. That's really good. We're not able to make it to DrupalCon, but would you be willing to come to the White House and tell us about Drupal and how the government could use open source? So I put on my tie and grabbed Therese and said, "We're going to the White House." And so we sat down and we did a strategy session, and the strategy session was, what do we think the White House is going to be concerned about when it comes to architecture and making a serious run at it? And it was really basically, a lot of it was these topics. And so we had the meeting. There was a lot of people who've done a lot of work prior. I mean, there's a lot of people who were involved in getting the White House to go to Drupal. The 4 Kitchens and Chapter 3 teams had built a prototype for the transition, the Obama administration transition team. Dave Cole had installed and run Drupal as a college student in advance. One of their senior architects had installed and run multiple Drupal instances in advance. And then also the great work of the security team, all of you who built businesses and made it credible and stuff like that. We were all involved. So there were thousands of people involved in getting it to work. So we worked really hard. All that hard work that you've been doing for years paid off, and we got to the White House. When we launched that site, in recovery.gov, there was one site in the federal government that I knew of, recovery.gov. We lost that one to SharePoint, but by the time almost a year later, when this one stood up, we had about 5 or 6. We're now at about 58 federal sites, and from what I can tell based on my meetings in Washington every month, we got about another 500 in the pipeline, and there's about 68 national governments running Drupal at top-level national domains right now. So we're well on our way to the secret world domination mission. Okay. So here's the tough thing that you're going to fight when you're going to get called into a big enterprise. People want to know how Drupal manages content. And you're going to think, hey, it manages content, we're really good at this. But the reality is that there's this audience inside, and they're called stakeholders. And those stakeholders in an IT evaluation of a Drupal site, or using Drupal as a platform, basically are often admin assistants, people who haven't really understood technology. They may not have a Gmail, they may not have a Facebook account. They're really people who like to type things in Word documents and then mail them to an IT person to publish them, right? And so in a large enterprise, you're going to go in, and the stakeholders are somewhere between 300 and 3,000 people who are going to need to be able to publish stuff on the web. And this IT department who's making this evaluation is saying, can you support this? Can you do this? Does it work this way? And there's all kinds of issues there. So they're trying to figure out, do I need one platform or multiple platforms? So because of Drupal's notion of nodes as content, you can get a lot. And so you can get the blog posts, the support topics, the forums, and you basically roll through all the things that you all know so well that Drupal can do, but you've got to be able to explain it to them. You've also got to be able to show them that they can do custom types, and you've got to show them how they can point back and forth and get all that social engagement that will really work for them. Okay? So most of this is basic, but you are going to have the stakeholders of 300 to 3,000 people who are going to vote. In many cases, I've lost several big, large deals with top 500 Fortune companies, where basically at the end of the day, it was me versus WordPress. The WordPress guys are out there right now going into every major enterprise, because every major enterprise has either thought about blogging or stood up a blogging instance, and they're adamant that they can scale WordPress to the biggest